Get ready for summer's heat. Replace your old AC with a high-efficiency Lennox AC during Sedgwick's pre-summer sale and save $1,200. Visit SedgwickHeating.com. Sedgwick, celebrating 60 years of superior service and affordable quality.
From 2009 to early 2017, Ben Rhodes was side by side with Barack Obama, helping to formulate and sell his foreign policy to the country and the world. But now, more than 3 years later, Rhodes is disillusioned by everything that has happened since. The rise of authoritarian regimes, the harsh and brutal suppression of dissent, and the bloody conflicts that still rip through the Middle East, most notably of late, the horrific violence between Israelis and Palestinians, a clash that has divided the Democratic Party. But perhaps nothing has left Rhodes more depressed than what has taken place in this country, with a Republican Party that is still so wedded to Donald Trump that GOP senators on Friday blocked passage of an independent commission to investigate the January 6th assault on the U.S. Capitol. We'll talk to Rhodes about his current state of depression and his new book, After the Fall, on this episode of Skullduggery.
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
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 I'm Michael Isikoff, Chief Investigative Correspondent for Yahoo News.
I'm Dan Kleidman, Editor-in-Chief of Yahoo News.
And I'm Victoria Bassetti, a fellow at the Brennan Center for Justice.
It is pretty striking to listen to Ben Rhodes, a guy who, after all, was a spin doctor for a president who got elected on the promise of hope and change, talk about the world and the country now, that, you know, when you hear him and you read what he's writing in this book, he seems almost devoid of hope and a path to changing the world back in the direction he wants it to go. And, I got to say, as we tape this on Friday, just minutes after the Senate voted down the January 6th commission with not able to get the 10 Republicans needed to break a filibuster, it seems that hopelessness has been reinforced.
Yeah, disillusioned is the word you use, and it's the right word. It's interesting to go back and read about his tenure as, Obama's chief foreign policy speechwriter, in which he was channeling, that very hopey and changey Barack Obama on foreign policy, and to see him write, those phrases that Obama used to use, talking about racism in this country, or greed, or terrible things that that some people do, and he would say, "This isn't who we are," and then Ben Rhodes, right? Well, actually, maybe it is who we are. Or Obama used to say during the campaign, "Yes, we can." Rhodes seems to be suggesting, well, maybe we can't. It's pretty unusual for someone who, spent 2 full terms so close to a president, writing essentially a memoir, but it's more than just a memoir, and acknowledging in very poignant ways the sort of mistakes that they made, or not realizing quite how bad things were and were becoming. It's like the scales coming off his eyes, and a kind of a loss of innocence. It's pretty compelling stuff.
Yeah, I think shell-shocked is another way to kind of describe it, to realize that the authoritarian playbook that is being run in a lot of other countries, in Hungary, in Russia, in China, that playbook has a foothold now in the United States.
Well, more than having a foothold now in the United States, I think what he's arguing, Victoria, is that a lot of the forces that have led to authoritarianism in those countries were in part driven by
innovated here. Yeah.
Created here in the last 30 years, with the kind of obsession with money and the overcharged capitalism and, the military adventures and, 9/11,
the disruption and disinformation from social media,
the technology platforms,
to hypercharge.
all of that.
American big tech companies that allowed for the massive, disinformation campaigns that we've seen around the world. But let's talk just a little more about this January 6th commission defeat in the Senate. I mean, in one respect, it is true that the Justice Department has aggressive investigations going into the perpetrators of the assault. But those investigations, which Mitch McConnell is using as the basis for opposing this independent commission, only go so far. So there are certain things that we will not learn from the Justice Department investigation unless there's some incredible breakthrough in which one of the, January 6th insurrectionists decides to cooperate and talk about, people in Trump world he was communicating with. May or may not happen, but what was going on inside the White House on January 6th? What was Donald Trump doing and saying while the assault on the Capitol was going on? That was something that we've never gotten firsthand accounts of. We don't know. It's a black hole. It's something that an independent commission could have revealed. What did Kevin McCarthy say to Donald Trump, and what did Donald Trump say to him? That was something that an independent commission could have gotten with a subpoena under oath to Kevin McCarthy, and no select committee in the Congress is going to get to the bottom of that one. So there's a real loss to our state of knowledge about one of the major events in our history in recent years that was suffered here by the defeat of this commission bill.
But more than that, more than just being able to step back and ask the question about what Trump was thinking or doing on that day, we also lost the ability to look at the big structural problems that drove, many thousands of people, the disinformation cycles, the role of social media in driving it, the big lie. A whole variety of forces are at work. So this commission has, the ability to step back and look at the big picture and not just at Donald Trump has been, killed with the commission dying.
Yeah. I mean, well, so first of all, the McConnell argument is so specious. I mean, when we did the 9/11 commission, which obviously was, hugely valuable, we learned a ton that we didn't know before, and it shaped, a lot of policies going forward. The criminal investigations into 9/11 were probably the biggest criminal investigations we've ever had in this country, sprawling investigations all over the world.
Yeah.
And yet the country and the Congress still came together to create a 9/11 commission to investigate all of the other questions that a criminal investigation wouldn't address. But let's talk for a minute about, a Republican Party that just shot this down, with the exception of 6 Republicans who voted for it. And it really does tie into the conversation we're about to have with Ben Rhodes, because, he has talked about this Republican Party as being very different from the Republican Party just back, in the 9/11 period. It is, in his view, an illiberal party that is swiftly moving toward authoritarianism and that peddles in conspiracy theories and blatant falsehoods. And I think this vote seems to lend credence to that characterization, or at least, if they don't all believe it, that they are part of a party and a base that does.
I mean, look, I don't want to disagree with you too much on this, but there isn't, on the other hand, 35 Republicans in the House voted for this independent commission. So that's a sign that they're not all in lockstep on this. You had people like Paul Ryan just last night giving a very forceful denunciation of Donald Trump in a speech at the Reagan Library. And let's remember, you did have Republicans, secretaries of state and top election officials around the country who refused to go along with Trump's demands that the Electoral College vote be overturned, or that the votes be thrown out, the counted votes be thrown out. So I don't think it's quite as bleak. I don't think the Republican Party is unanimous in staying in lockstep with Donald Trump, but clearly there is a bulk of it that is in hock to a extremist, guy in off in Florida who makes no sense.
You definitely have to wonder about those 35 in the House or the 6 in the Senate who voted for the January 6th commission, whether or not they're just kind of hanging on to the last kind of stray bits of the Republican Party, or whether or not they're the nucleus of a future of the Republican Party. It's unclear. It feels right now like they're just barely hanging on, by their fingernails to this party.
It is interesting, and it's going to be tested when Donald Trump gets out there and starts endorsing primary candidates. And I think next week, he's actually going to start holding his first, big in-person rallies.
Let's see. By the way, and if he does not run for president again in 2024, Matt Gaetz has stepped up and said he'll be happy to do so. Of course, only if he's not in federal prison.
With his potential Vice President Marjorie Taylor Greene.
If you're the mayor of Boston, you can run for re-election, as I guess Mayor Curley did. But I don't know if you could do that if you're running for president.
All right. Well, anyway, we got a lot to talk about with Ben Rhodes, so let's get to it.
At Jiffy Lube, it's our job to make car care make sense. That's why we offer personalized service reviews that swap car talk for straight talk, so you know what your car is telling you and what to do about it. Putting you in the driver's seat of car care, that's a job for Jiffy. To find a Pennzoil pouring service center near you, visit jiffylube.com.
We now have with us Ben Rhodes, the former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama, and the author of the new book, After the Fall, Being American in the World We've Made. Ben, welcome back to Skullduggery.
Hey, guys. Good to be with you.
So a lot to talk about in your book, but I'd like to sort of start off with a little foreign policy and news. Yep. We just have been through this horrific experience between the Israelis and the Palestinians and rocket fire in Gaza, which really does seem to have created a rift within the Democratic Party about Israeli policy, where you hear strong voices, not just critical of Israeli policy, but also calling for some form of sanctions, military sale cutoffs, other steps to pressure the Israelis. You've been in the middle of this issue. You're for many years.
Yes,
I want to get your take on what took place between the Israelis and Hamas in Gaza, and also within Israel itself, and what we should make of this, what appears to be a rift within the Democratic Party right now.
I guess let me try to put this a new way from how I've talked about this. By the time we reached the end of the Obama administration in 2016, you may remember that we abstained on a UN Security Council resolution that condemned Israeli settlement expansion and took a lot of heat on the way out the door. It was like I felt like I was getting beat up on the way out the door.
By the way, and that's what Mike Flynn and company were trying to get reversed during the transition.
Exactly.
Leading to phone calls with the Russian ambassador. Right?
That's right. Actually, it's kind of, patient zero for some of those scandals. But the reason we did that at that time is after having dealt with this issue, the Palestinian issue, for 8 years, it was obvious by 2016 that the Israeli government under Bibi Netanyahu had no interest in a two-state solution. He subsequently said, he has no interest. It won't happen on his watch. The settlements were expanding in a way that was beginning to really eat away at any viability of a Palestinian state in the West Bank. You'd already had 3 Gaza wars by that time, and it felt like this is just not sustainable to say that it's U.S. government policy to support a two-state solution and watch it basically be steadily destroyed in front of your eyes. And people don't often pay attention to these issues in between the Gaza wars. And Trump gave such a full embrace to Netanyahu that in a strange way made it seem like there's not any drama here anymore, because it just feels like this thing is just being settled in terms of the Palestinians being dictated their terms of surrender, really. And I think what happened this time is not only did you have another Gaza war, which highlighted